my take on it, and it's certainly not without compassion for those many, many souls that have taken such a tough challenge to grow.
You know, when you talked about the ETs have no commitment to intervene, right, until a certain point, like it's within our realm. Whatever's going to happen, it's within our realm. The only thing I would say to you on that is, how do we explain the fact that there are ETs by all these missile silos that show up on military bases? On some level, we are seriously being watched. I think on some level, if it gets to the point of pulling the trigger on that, I think they will intervene. It has to be almost at that level. Do you agree or disagree?
I do agree. Because what they say when we even explode one nuclear bomb, it actually affects all the dimensions and them too. We don't realize energetically what that's doing, but they do. And that's why they are around, why they've deprogrammed so many missiles. In Bent Waters they did it. They've done it in many missile sites over in the U.S. Robert Sala, for example, actually talks about this in his book, where when he was in the military, where he was present while the UFO was outside the perimeter, and obviously sent some kind of frequency down to the silos where the missile bases were. He talks about it in his book Faded Giant. I know Robert very well, and you know, he's one of many now, the whistleblowers, that are saying that this has happened on many, many military sites where they have the nuclear missiles. And it's got to happen that we get help in those kinds of ways.
Right, that's what I meant. One part of me totally gets what you're talking about when you talk about not living in fear, not having fear, not taking on the fear. And you have this no fear stance towards the extraterrestrial and abduction phenomenon. And I get, because of your proximity and your many years of experience with this, you have kind of a peace with this. But some part of me in the conscious realm cannot accept, and this is me, and I'm sure it's happening out there, right? Some part of me cannot accept that all ETs, just like all people, are all good. There's got to be some bad ones. This translation is happening in a little dot in the blip of the universe, okay? I realize that. But in the conscious realm, it's really hard to get that there is no polarity that way. And therefore, that part of what you're translating and communicating is hard to accept and believe. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and I'm not saying that there's not those that are self-serving. That's not what I'm saying. I would think it would be, and this is a funny word for me to use in a way, unrealistic to think that there was no polarity. What's above, below, above, kind of thing fits for me. And I certainly think there are some that are self-serving. I've got no doubts about that. But what I would say is that the majority of what my data is showing me, with all the people coming to me, even with those with a very negative sense of their experiences, understandably, some of that, of course, is my lab, and that's a whole new ball game. This is the military orchestrated abductions, where people are taken by the military and literally abducted and terrorized, drugged, and there's a lot of evidence to show this is happening in a number of countries, where they are made to believe that's an ET-related abduction when it isn't. And this is all the propaganda, again, to get us to fear these intelligences, and people need to know that that's real and it's happening. And I've met a lot of people having those experiences. Having said that, I'm not denying the possibility, and certainly acknowledging that some of those extraterrestrials too may be self-serving, because I can't say I don't believe that, because I don't know. So it's logical to expect that there certainly are. Whether we're being protected from those to a certain extent by those that are assisting us, who are in fact our extended family, maybe that's the case. Maybe some of them get through, quite possibly. And I don't know. All I can say is that it's of course it's possible. But the evidence of my research is showing primarily, when people understand it at the depth that they do, all I'm seeing generally is, if you like, a protocol to help this planet and its peoples evolve. But that's not to say that in the universe, and certainly some may very well be interacting with us in a self-serving way. I've just not seen a huge amount of evidence for that yet. That doesn't mean, though, it doesn't exist, and maybe, tomorrow someone's going to walk in my door and that's exactly what I'm going to find. So I have to, obviously, be objective. I have to be open to all possibilities, and like everyone else on this planet, I'm just joining the dots. I've no idea where the dots are going to lead. You get one answer which only begets another question. I don't know what I don't know. But all I can do is ask the universe to inform me, to help me do the work in the best, with the most integrity that I can. And hopefully when people, walk in, they walk out feeling better than when they walked in, when they come to see me. And do no harm is my mandate. So I'm just hoping that I can continue to do that.
That's so beautiful. I do want to say something about the MyLab. And that is that, as you know, many years ago, Carol Rosin had done some speech writing for Wernher von Braun many, many years ago, and was at his deathbed, yep, where he talked to her about the fact that they were going to stage an alien destructive presence on Earth using a holographic technology to get people to fear the extraterrestrial presence and to look at it as an enemy, to look at the ETs as an enemy, so that they could pass laws to take over outer space and to weaponize space, because space is the final frontier for a military-industrial complex. Not to get into this whole thing, but just to tell you that that's why I can appreciate what you're talking about with the other side of these abductions being military, MyLab abductions, which are a totally separate phenomenon. I could see how that could be going on for reasons that are a part of this.
Absolutely. And it's very important people realize that, and realize there are many top researchers that have MyLab on their books but don't acknowledge it. And some of the very negative stuff that has been written, I believe, is because what they're actually looking at is MyLab rather than, in fact, an ET encounter. What people don't realize is, and this is really like sci-fi, is there's such thing as program life forms. These are genetic material taken by the military, where they've actually cloned and created programmed life forms that look like ETs, but in fact programmed by the military, and that's what people are seeing rather than real extraterrestrials. But some of those those experiences that have actually been informed of this on the craft and are told how to differentiate between a real extraterrestrial and a programmed life form. Now, this is really sci-fi stuff to a lot of people. They may find it very hard to believe. But all I can say is, in my research, I have enough data to believe this actually is a reality. And there's so much more. Some people need to look at a book by or the information by Dr. Michael Wolff, who died in 2000. He worked with the, above top secret on these programs where he knew about the cloning. And what actually we are so, in the secret programs, they are 30 years ahead of what technology and what we understand right now. People have got no idea actually what is known about in these black budgets and secret programs.
I have to tell you something very funny. I did an interview with a scientist who had this big press about his advance in holographic technology. And it was very interesting to talk with him. But then when I started to talk with him about how far holographic technology has come, he had no clue that there were military patents that allow holographic technology to do things that he couldn't even imagine. That there are actual patents on this stuff. And so I told him the patent numbers and I gave him a link to the site. But it's just so interesting. And if you really want to know how far technology is, too, you just go to the patents. The patents tell you everything, what they're in possession of, how long they've had it. By the time they're filing it, they've had it a long time. One last fun question. Would you like to ride in a craft?
Oh, look, I would be the first in the queue. I'm very much a space cadet. I have to tell you, I don't know, but certain people have told me they've seen me up there, so maybe that's the reason. But I've got no conscious memory about. I have said, look, I'm your best PR agent down here. Isn't it time you gave me a ride consciously at least? So I will be very, very annoyed before I actually leave this planet physically if I'm not at least given one ride